Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course stream for fun. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. I do one of these every once in a while, and we're going to be doing an economic update. Now the reason I do these is because this channel is not just for entertainment purposes, but it's also, and it's not just either to talk about the issues in the gaming industry, you know, the hobby that we love. Some of us make money off of this, but also because I care about you guys, and the economics affects us all. And so I do these every once in a while. We're going through a really tumultuous time ever since we've had the lockdowns, which has put us into this tailspin almost, it feels like. And we're getting close to 2024. So if you're not interested in this, that's okay. You can go ahead and just wait for the next video. But for those of you that are going to stay, we're going to talk about some basic economic data for the United States. We're also going to be talking about bankruptcies. We're also going to be talking about some of the data coming out for Black Friday. We're going to talk about some surveys. We're going to talk about bank closures, credit card debt, housing. We're going to talk about some commercials, the car industry, retail sales, and then we're also going to have some news that was kind of shocking for me, but we don't know exactly what's going on yet with the Federal Reserve. And if you don't really know much about any of this, that's okay. Just try to glean what you can from it. But the biggest thing is that this is ultimately a warning. And, you know, my last couple of economic updates I've had, I've been saying the same thing. To get ready, to get prepared, to have some cash on hand, to get debts paid off. And, you know, no matter what stage of life you're in, and no matter what type of economic part we are in a cycle, you'll be glad you did those things. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so U.S. inflation data they're showing is 3.1%. So for those of you that remember, a couple of years ago we hit like 9% in 21, which was pretty insane. Or maybe that was kind of 22. But yeah, that was pretty insane. We hit 9%, and that's because we had all of that stimulus for free all at once. Everybody went out and spent a lot of it, and so yeah, we hit 9%. Now, what inflation means is that over a 12-month period, the prices of general goods have gone up a certain percent. Now, in order to return back, we need negative percent. We need a negative inflation rate. But that is also really, really bad, but I also think healthy because it works on taking the economy down to a more affordable level for everybody, but we have to go through some serious pain first, and that's called deflation, and the Federal Reserve and the government hates that more than anything, but ultimately this is why homes, you know, our grandparents or great-grandparents talked about a home being, you know, $10,000, and now today it's $300,000 or $400,000, maybe even over $1 million or a couple of million, depending on where you live. So yeah, right now the inflation is 3.1%. If we also look at shadow stats, they use some of the older metrics from the 90s and from the 80s to calculate some of this economic data in the United States. And shadow stats is showing that by using the 1980s metric, and they adjust the metrics, you know, so they can kind of, in my opinion, lie and mislead about what's really going on. If we use the shadow stat metric, it's closer to 10%. Now, I would believe that, but when it was 9%, we were closer to 20% inflation. And I would have believed that, too. Because for them to come out and tell me, oh, it's only this much, it's like, not my world, baby. Not with energy and cost of living and insurance and food and all of this stuff. It's like, it's extremely expensive, and all of us have been feeling this. And so yeah, I really enjoy Shadow Stats. You can check them out. They're free. The information is free. They talk about how they calculate stuff in there. And yeah, for information junkies like me, it's great. Oh, also I want to share, like, this is going to be a pretty long video, so if you're kind of strapped on time, you can go ahead and have this, if you're watching this on YouTube at Gaming Garbage 22, that's my channel, you can also run the play speed at 1.25 times. It'll help you speed it up a little bit, and I'll do that too on YouTube for whatever I'm watching. Unemployment. They're saying it ticked down a little bit at 3.7. Shadow Stats looks at all of the unemployment data and sums it all together, which they used to do that as well, and we're closer to 25%. So this includes all of the people that have been laid off, all the people that aren't looking anymore, all of the people that are on continuous unemployment, all of the people that are just using several part-time jobs to make a full-time wage. This includes everybody, and yeah, that's closer to 25% right now, which is crazy. That's a ton of people, and I'd believe that too. The homeless population in my town is way bigger than it used to be a couple of years ago. There's more and more people that I know that are losing their jobs, that are having trouble finding a job or keeping their job, or they've lost multiple jobs already since the lockdowns. And so, yeah, there's more and more people having a tough time. Now, the unemployment rate is just the people that could work but aren't for whatever reason, like some of the reasons I mentioned earlier. Let's see. Gross domestic product, also known as GDP. Apparently, that's 5% right now, basically in the United States. Shadow Stats shows that it's actually negative 1.5%. So again, the metrics have changed in how they calculate stuff so that things really look better than they really are. And it's kind of not really fair, changing the metrics and measuring things differently to have a higher number for the public. Because really that's they're helping us believe a lie, basically. But yeah, Shadow Stats is showing negative 1.5% as of right now, as of last quarter. If we remove the stimulus that we all got in 2020 and 2021, and the business stimulus that has still been going on all the way through September of 2022, actually, it might even be some of those PPE loans might be going into 2023. And there's also been a COVID effects credit for businesses to reinstate employee wages, all of this stuff, all of this free money we can't even imagine, folks, at tens of billions a month. If we remove the stimulus out of the economy and its effects, we're really looking at a negative 3% GDP. And that's catastrophic, folks. That's catastrophic. That's 8% less than what they're currently telling us right now, at almost 5%. And so the economy is not good, folks. If we start looking at bankruptcies, let's start with corporate America first. In 2021, we had 408. In 2022, we had 373. So, hey, this is actually starting to look pretty good. In corporate America, these are like big companies. These aren't just small ones. These guys employ a lot of people, a lot of vendors worked in with that, suppliers, all that kind of stuff. 2023 so far is at 459. And if we keep on the current trajectory average, since we have October, November, and December data left, we'd be at 612. That's a lot of big companies that we've lost so far this year. And that's crazy. And we won't get official data until next year, because data is always lagging. We're always looking back. But yeah, that's a crazy amount. We haven't had that number, excluding the lockdowns, which governments just completely shut down for fun, in my opinion, for more than a year. There was like, I want to say there was 630 in 2020. So we lost quite a few businesses there. But we haven't seen these numbers, excluding the lockdowns in 2020, since 2010. And we remember, the great financial crisis, maybe some of us do, that started in 2007 and worked its way through around the world, even including Greece and the Eurozone, all the way through like 2014, 2015. So these had huge long-term effects. And some of the stats coming out now are actually in worse shape, or showing a greater issue going on underneath than in 2008. But they're not calling recession yet. And this is frustrating for me because we absolutely feel like we're in one. Looking at public or personal bankruptcies, they're up 12% from this time last year, which is which is brutal. We're at almost basically 500,000 personal bankruptcies. So looking at several surveys, we see Forbes, 41% are living paycheck to paycheck. MetLife had the same type of survey. They're showing 55% say they're living paycheck to paycheck. Bankrate survey showed that 57% don't have $1,000 for an emergency. And so people feel broke, folks. People feel broke. There's also some other surveys out there that are showing around 60%, but they're coupling a few different things together and kind of getting that number up, because they want more views, right? They want more people coming to their website. But the raw data shows that the highest I've seen so far is 55%, which is insane. And these surveys, they're fairly old. Some of them took at the beginning of this year, and some of them took place last year. And what I want is 2023 data. We look at another system that's in the United States called payments. They basically track spending and credit card use and things like that, and then they basically sell that data to banks, to companies, to retailers, all that kind of stuff, so they can kind of tweak things to get us to basically spend more money. It's called marketing, folks. And so payments said they saw a 10% increase in buy now, pay later during Black Friday. And that's just Black Friday. That's not Cyber Monday, but that's always been an option. Also around Christmas time. But yeah, 10% is the highest it's ever been on record since they've been keeping track. Usually it's around 4 or 5%. And when we get closer to the holidays, it's maybe more like 6 or 7 or maybe 8. Like 8% was last year, but now it's a little over 10%, 10.2. So yeah, people don't have the money to pay now. They plan on paying later. Maybe with a bonus at the end of the year, or in January of 2024, or maybe when they get their tax refunds that they're counting on, which I'm sure most of us probably are. They're just thinking they can pay it back later, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case for everybody. Also, the best deals were all after Cyber Monday week. So they weren't during Black Friday, they weren't during Cyber Monday. They're right now. And this includes game consoles, the stores on your game console, like PlayStation Store, Xbox Store, Nintendo Store, Epic Store, Steam. The best sales are right now, which is crazy. The clothing in Kohl's, the appliances at Home Depot and Lowe's, even food. We had one of the biggest upticks in food sales during Black Friday and Cyber Monday, which is crazy. But yeah, people need food. Usually they buy the tech, usually they're buying clothes and whatever else, because it's on sale. Kind of discretionary spending type of stuff we don't need, right? But yeah, people were also buying a lot of food this year. Because which is crazy. You don't really think of that, but people are having trouble, folks. Also, I have a cousin that works at a distribution center, and they have always had overtime. Sometimes even mandatory, because they just got to get stuff moved through the warehouse onto trucks. Well, for the first time since he's had this job, which he's getting close to like 6 years now, or 7 years, a while, they no longer have overtime. They don't need it. And so that's also a really bad sign of the times here on this side of the United States. I'm over in Oregon, beyond the West Coast. That's horrible. People aren't buying stuff, so they don't need to move the freight. But yeah, I couldn't believe that when he said, yeah, there's been no overtime. I was like, what? That's insane. Keplinger, they've been keeping track of the banking system in the United States. Oh yeah, I need to mention this too. If you guys live in the UK or the Eurozone, Metro has had an outage for their website and for their app. So if you actually need to get money, you have to go to a physical bank, and hopefully you can get some of your money out if you need it. And it's always good too to have some cash on hand, folks, because when you have an outage or the power goes out, how do you access your money? Exactly. It's good to have some on hand. So Keplinger is keeping track of bank closures and branch closures, and we've had 7,000 between 2017 to 2021. So that's a span of, let's see, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So that's 5 years. We've had 7,000 bank closures. There's quite a few, a little over 1,000 a year. And that's 9% of all locations during that time. As of last year, 2022, we've had 2,000 bank closures. Net. That's about 3% in a 12-month period. So banks aren't having a good time either. Inflation does not just affect us. It affects the jobs. It affects our employers. It affects the restaurants, the places where we go out to eat, the places we go to shop. It affects the industrial side and commerce side. It affects everybody. And everybody is feeling the pain. And if your employer feels enough pain, well, they let you go. You lose your job. And nobody wants that. Maybe some days when things are good, it's like, yeah, the employer screws me over, blah, blah, blah. But, when your employer gets squeezed enough, you lose your job. And then you make nothing. There's unemployment, but those extensions from COVID and lockdowns, those are gone. So you basically get unemployment, for, I think, depending on where you live, 3 to 6 months. And that's it. And I even got friends now that are having trouble trying to find work. And they don't feel very secure about their current job if they still have one either. Because they see other people losing their jobs and they're like, am I next? So things are tough out there, folks. There's also more closures set for Q1 in 2024 for more closures for bank branches. This is JP Morgan, Bank of America, U.S. Bank, Citigroup, you name it. Also regional banks too, small ones. And we've also had several bank failures this year. Not just the ones in March like Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. We've had more later in the year during the summer and during the fall time. But they don't talk about those. They're not talking about them. They're not widely advertised. They're just like, oh, hey, we just quietly merged it with another bank over the weekend and everything's fine. Nothing to see here. And so that's also worrisome. Let's take a look at credit card debt. Right now, it's at an all-time high, and every flippin' month for over a year now, we've been breaking this record. And so looking at credit card debt, we're now over $1 trillion. And that does not include the interest. That is just what's been charged on the card, folks. And this doesn't include student loans. This doesn't include car loans. This doesn't include mortgages. This is just basically credit card debt, or like HELOCs maybe. Through the banking system on your mortgage if you have one, which I really don't suggest doing a HELOC. I mean, if you have to take money out now, you might as well just let stuff go than to just taking on more debt, because the average credit card percent right now is 29-30%. I remember a couple years ago when it was 14%. And yeah, 29-30%, that's crazy. That is insane. It's more than doubled. When we look at job growth, so they show job numbers, they basically want to show, hey, how many jobs they created. What they're not telling you is that most of those are part-time jobs. And full-time jobs are basically disappearing. Also, they don't tell you that they revise those numbers because they're an estimate. When they get the real data, they revise them. And sometimes they revise them up, which is good. It means there's actually more money coming into the economy, but it also means inflation is going to go up. But they've been revising these numbers down for 20 months. 20 months in a row. We haven't had a single jobs number that's been fairly accurate or revised upward. These are thousands or even tens of thousands of jobs every month that we've been losing for 20 months now. And this isn't sustainable. We've also had unemployment claims going up. We used to be under 100,000 a year ago, and now we're over 200,000 every flippin' month. So people are losing their jobs, and people, we're not having the job growth that they're telling us we are. Oh, there was something else too. Oh yeah, job openings. So as of the last time I looked this up, we were at about 11.5 million job openings in the United States. Now we're down to like a little under 8 million. And so even companies, they're just taking the job listings right off of the market. They don't need them. And so all three aspects of those are horrible for the job market. So if you have a job right now, freaking hang on to it, please. Because the likelihood of you getting a job now, if you lose yours, or getting a job into 2024 is less likely than it would have been last year or the year before. And people moving around to get better pay and better wages, like during the lockdowns and stuff and remote work, that's gone. There's still some areas where remote work is allowed, but a lot of companies want their employees to come back to the workplace because they're more productive. The data backs that up. We don't like it, right? But the data is what it is. We work better when we're actually at work. The housing market. So usually a healthy housing market is that there's about 5 to 6 months of supply. And what that means is that all of the housing that is for sale is that it takes 6 months to go through and sell it all, if no more were added to the market. That's a pretty healthy market usually. Housing prices stay relatively flat. There's no adjustments for mortgages. The fees are somewhat competitive between different companies because they still are competing with other banks and other financial institutions. And so, yeah, a pretty healthy market is 5 to 6 months. During 21, we had 2 months. And in 2022, we were starting to get to 3 to 4 months. Toward the end of 22 and into all of 23, it's been steadily going up with the housing supply. And right now, we're just under 8 months of housing supply, and it's still trending up. We still have home builders that are trying to get their homes finished and built and put them out onto the market. I even have a housing division right now that's up my street that has like 25 lots on it. They only filled 5 of them, and 3 of them are actual full-size homes, like, 3 or 4 bedroom, 2 bath kind of a thing with a garage and stuff. And then 2 of the other lots, well, they changed their development plan and made quadplexes. And those quadplexes aren't full. I went behind them to take a look at night, and one of them had a light on. Still looked like nobody lived there. And the other 7 are empty. Pitch black. Pitch flippin' black, folks, in the windows. All of them. And so there's nobody living there. And they've been built now for like 4 months. It's, maybe more like 3 months. Would have been sometime in September. Yeah, it's crazy. They're not filling up. I see more for sale signs. I also see more for rent signs in my neighborhood. And I also see the signs lasting longer than they did. They're now lasting months at a time before anything actually happens. And I don't think they sell. I just think maybe they turn them into rentals just to try to get somebody in there to pay the mortgage payment. Again, I don't have data on that. And again, this isn't an economic channel. But yeah, what I'm seeing in my own neighborhood is that the housing market is starting to turn. We've even lost 10% of the value on our house. We could technically, according to Zillow, sell it for $440,000. Now we can sell it for a little under 390 some is what we could actually sell it for. So yeah, we've lost 10%. But it's not enough to get people to buy yet. That's the problem, because the interest rates are too high. That will change, folks. If you want to buy a house in a few years, I would start saving now. I would pay off whatever debt you have, and I would start saving now, so that in several years you can have a good down payment. Because it will turn at some point. Because right now it's unsustainable. Even big companies like BlackRock and Blackstone, they're getting out because there's no money in it. Taking a look at commercials and ads in 2023. So the Super Bowl, right? Every Super Bowl is like, oh, the commercials. We watch the Super Bowl for the commercials, right? At least some of us do. Well, in 2023, it was the worst year ever that I can remember. We had missing brands that were always had commercials. Some of the brands weren't there. The ads were also very short. Sometimes the ads didn't have any words even. I remember one with Steven Tyler where he was in a NASCAR tracksuit on a race car track, probably Daytona, And then they were selling a car, but nobody talked. There was just some music, some flashiness with the car, and Steven Tyler's smile looking in the distance, and that was the flippin' commercial. And commercials too used to last a minimum of 30 seconds. Those are the time slots that they sell, is 30-second increments, so they'd either be 30 seconds or 60 seconds for the commercial. Budweiser always had some of the biggest and largest commercials, but boy, not this year. They were shorter, less talking. So yeah, whatever they could do to make them cheaper. And remember, folks, these commercials were made in 2022 because they gotta show the commercials, pay the money, do all the transaction stuff, and then actually get the information or the commercial to the broadcasters to show during the Super Bowl, and then finally it can be showed in February of the next year. But yeah, it takes time to get all that stuff done. So even in 2022, these companies were pulling back on their commercials. And when it's not just during the Super Bowl, too, we're seeing it in YouTube ads. So they've also gotten shorter. Pretty much all of them now are like 5 seconds. Maybe some are about 10 or 15. Another example is like Facebook. We used to have pretty good animated Facebook ads that actually looked pretty good. But now they're, but lately the ones that I've seen is that they're just drawings. They look like they're drawing from a middle school. It's hilarious. I should have taken a picture of one of those so I could post it on the channel. Also, Dr. Sasquatch. Remember those commercials? Those soap commercials for men, You're a man. The guy with a, blonde beard and long blonde hair. What happened to him? The commercials now are basically people in their cars telling you that Dr. Sasquatch soap is having a sale. You can buy 3 and get 3 more for free. You can get a total of 6. Or if they're doing a certain collectors, again, it's presented by somebody like on YouTube, some content creator doing it out of their car. The quality is drastically down. And so, yeah, those Dr. Sasquatch commercials, they're gone right now. The ones we remember. And then, yeah, they're also shorter. So just companies are still wanting to promote, but they have to cut costs somewhere. And even YouTube and Google, which that's the same company really, they're sharing that it's like, hey, the ad revenue is way down. Even content creators in 2022 are like, hey, I'm flipping losing money, and hey, smash that like button and make sure you're subscribed and watch all the way through if you can, because we really need the ad revenue because it's down. The Angry Joe Show has talked about this. We've seen this with what's the other one? The Act Man was another one. The Maverick of Wall Street, which is an economic channel that I listen to. They've all talked about the same thing with ad revenue going down. And so they're trying to create ever better ways to make money, having a Patreon, having a Substack, being on Kicker or Rumble or something, just trying to get more revenue to come in. Let's talk about cars. So the car repo rate is now 65%. What that means is that for every 3 cars that are sold, 2 of them are going to be repoed. It's an insane repo rate. We haven't seen something like this since 2008, 2009. And people can't afford their car payments. Because for the first time ever, because of the stimulus money and people went out and spent it, we actually had cars go up in value. That's the first time ever, folks. It's never happened before. And I will never buy a new car unless I really got some free money just to slosh around because of my tens of millions that I don't have are still sitting in the bank. We've never had appreciating car prices, and I'll never buy a new one because as soon as you drive it off the lot, you can lose 20 to 30% of the value of a new car. I let someone else buy it. I let someone else take the hit. I'll take a 5% or a 10% depreciation on $10,000 instead of a 20% depreciation or a 30% depreciation on $40,000. It's just a much better investment for me just to buy used. And I always will. But yeah, the repo rate is crazy. Also, one of my favorite cars that I want to buy someday for my wife and I is a Dodge Challenger. I love those cars. Oh man, I can't wait to get one too. Work on it, mess something up, and have to figure it out. I'll be pretty upset in the moment, but it'll be good for me. It'll be good for me. But yeah, any year, any trim, the prices are about half of what they were almost 2 years ago. Taking a look on Car Gurus. Car Gurus, there used to be maybe almost no challengers at all. You saw them all the time. I used to hear them up and down my street all the time. And yeah, there used to be about 200 pages on Car Gurus at one point, which was pretty good. And now, as of yesterday, there's 700 pages of Car Gurus, of Dodge Challengers on Car Gurus. There's a ton. And it's pretty easy now to find models for $25,000 or less. And even some of the really expensive ones that were like $150K or over 100, now they're, 80, 90,000. So they've lost a lot of value. You can even find some now that are around 15 grand. Again, it's higher miles, it's older models, but there's quite a few that are under 25K now that aren't just base models either. So if you're looking for something fancy and you got some of that money, you want a boat, you want an RV, you want a trailer, you want a really nice kind of fancier car, continue to wait as this recession completely gets kicked in, because the prices will continue to go down. They've already gone down about 40 or 50% to where they were 24 months ago. And yeah, we're technically not in recession yet. And so yeah, it's not going to get better, folks. We still got some time to go down, and I think 24 is going to be kind of the recession that people have been touting about. But, it's already been delayed a couple more years than I ever thought possible. I thought it was going to start in 2022, and we had that stock market correction in October through the rest of the year. But yeah, I was wrong on that. So I was like, well, 2023, and been wrong on that one. We've had some bad months, but this 2023 has actually been a pretty good year for stocks. It's a really good time right now for bonds. Man, am I making some money. Yeah, 2024, how long can they keep faking it? I've already gone through a lot of this data, and it just blows my mind how they keep holding it off. And nobody wants the values to go down, because ultimately somebody has to be left holding the bag and somebody has to take that loss. And we never want that to be us. But at some point, we have to have a real economy, folks. We have to let capitalism work, because the socialism that they did, the communism and fascism that they did during the lockdowns, this is what it leads to, folks. Do you feel better? Do you feel happier? Do you feel more secure? The answer is probably no. And this is why we need a free market. This is why we need a private sector. This is why we need the government kind of to not over-regulate the crap out of everything. And two, it's not just the United States. The United States is doing pretty dang good compared to most of the countries in the world right now. There's about 250 countries out there. Some countries are absolutely devastated and have been, and they'll probably never recover. Others have over 100% inflation just on their food or their energy, depending on where you live. Germany is officially in recession now. The Eurozone isn't looking very good. The strength of most currencies against the dollar, US dollar, is poor. We've even having some countries right now that are like, hey, we're going to switch to the US dollar and get rid of our own official currency because it's not working. We need to find some way to kind of stabilize prices because inflation is insane. But yeah, you can't cheat economics, folks. Eventually it catches up. Something else too with cars. My car is pretty rare because they don't make them anymore. And earlier this year, there were 0 cars available. Every once in a while, there'd be one, including even last year. There's maybe be a few of them on the market on Car Gurus. Now there's 15, which is nuts. And the prices are actually cheaper by quite a bit. It was pretty average for them to be $12,000 to $17,000, and now most of them are under 10. So again, depending on what you're buying or what you have to pay for, it's all about when you buy it. It's not as much about how long you have it for. It's really more about when. That's what I've been learning through my own journey of growing as an adult, supporting a family, buying a house, etc. Let's talk about retail sales. So adjusted for inflation, they're actually negative right now. So what that means is if you take the cost and you adjust for the incurred inflation that we have, wink wink, 3%, we're actually not having good retail sales. We're still having a large gross number numerically. Like Black Friday was tens of billions of dollars spent on Black Friday. Congratulations, everybody. But we're not selling the units that we usually do. And adjusted for inflation, we're actually selling less as buying power than we have in the past. So we had a really weak Black Friday. And retailers are saying, hey, this isn't good. And when do we see retail sales be negative? Well, 2000, 2008, and 2020. Those were all recessions, folks. Those were all times, artificial or not, where the economy didn't do good. And people were feeling it. 2020 wasn't for very long because of the stimulation and stuff. Or the stimulus, excuse me. But yeah, regardless, I really do think recession is coming. I mean, most of us have been feeling it already. And if we're technically not in one yet, it might actually get pretty dang bad. Maybe even worse than 2008. Some of the metrics, comparing 2008 to now, some of them are worse now than in 2008. So I can't see how we can't be in recession. Other retailers, too, are saying that customers aren't spending. So we've had earning reports the last several months, and all of these companies said that their consumers aren't spending like they did. So that's Target, Kroger, Macy's, Lowe's, Home Depot, Amazon, Best Buy, Walmart. It's a ton of them. They're all saying consumers aren't spending like they used to. They're not making enough. This is why we've had store closures. This is why Best Buy is going to be removing movies after this year. This is why Walmart is going to be phasing out games next year. This is why, too, we've had a lot of Kroger stores and Fred Meyer's have complete renovations of their store to add more of what's selling and reduce what's not so that they can keep their store running. This is why we've had layoffs since 2022, folks. And we're still having layoffs. This is why we've had increased bankruptcies. I mean, the economy is not healthy. They're painting it pretty good. You know, they're putting lipstick on a pig. But yeah, it's not good, folks. And the last piece of news is the Fed Reserve. So, I don't know how much you guys know about this, but the Federal Reserve basically has the federal funds rate for the banks. And basically that's what banks have to pay when they borrow money, right? When they transact with the federal government, like treasuries and whatever. And it's basically a really complex game of switching debt around with interest on it. And the interest right now is very, very high. And what's crazy is that the Fed has been like, look, we're going to continue to raise rates, and we're going to have them be higher for longer, which is applying pressure. Because when the banks feel like things are expensive, well, they don't want to lend. And they haven't been. And that's why the interest rates, like on a mortgage, are like 8 to 10%, depending on your credit score. And, well, yesterday, they completely pivoted. They're like, look, we're not going to raise anymore. It's not likely. Maybe one more time, but very unlikely. And then we're going to start cuts possibly in like March or May of next year. It used to be there weren't supposed to be any cuts in 2024. And now we're going to have at least 3 in 2024. And we're talking about a difference from the Fed chair, Jerome Powell. We're talking about a difference of literally 2 weeks. On December 1st, it's like, look, we're going to stay higher for longer. We're not going to have any rate cuts in 24. And then on December 13th, they're like, well, we're going to have rate cuts. We're going to have at least 3. What? What happened? What changed? It's like something totally spooked them, and now they're wanting to cut rates. So something happened, and it's not good, because usually, historically, every time the Federal Reserve cuts rates, we have a recession. Every flippin' time. You can go back and look at the FRED database, Federal Reserve Economic Database, and yeah, you can see it over and over and over again. It's crazy. So, folks, be smart with your money. You know, this is depressing, but you know, make sure your job's secure. Do a good job. Don't just do a good job for you. Also, do a good job for your company. Keep your company running. Help them stay running so that you can have a job. Because unemployment isn't fun and it's not worth it. It's really not. Do whatever you can to survive, folks. Well, have a set of morals, right? Don't steal. Don't cheat. Don't take advantage of folks. Everyone else is having a hard time just like you. But yeah, have a side gig. Get another job. Whatever it takes. I mean, if I got to work 80 hours a week between 2 or 3 jobs, so be it. I'm there. I got a family to support, and, you know, they can't support themselves, and so I got to do it. And I'm glad to do it. I'm not going to be happy, but I'm going to be glad to do it. So, yeah, be smart out there, folks. This is an economic update. Again, I'll do these every so often. But, yeah, economics affects everybody. And it's a mess. So you can always find me over at GamingGarbage22 on YouTube, where I'll archive everything. That's where most of my focus is. And also, you can find me over at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee. I don't always watch the chat when I'm streaming. It's just hard for me to multitask. It's always been like that. But hey, if you want to follow me there too, you certainly can. Hopefully you guys are doing all right. Hang in there, folks. It will eventually get better. I'm right there with you. And I'll see you on the next one.